Google's definition of kidnapping is to take someone away illegally by force. Being kidnapped is a common fear for people. Is it a fear of yours?
Yeah.
I have always had a huge fear of being kidnapped. My family might call it an obsession, but I have read a lot of books about victims, seen the movies, and watched the talk shows about the survivors, so I'm pretty familiar with the topic. I don't want you to think that everyone is out to get you and that strangers are going to jump out of the bushes and grab you, because that isn't as common as television makes it seem. However, I am going to let you know of the things that attackers look for in their victims, as well as give you some self-defense tips and tell you the story of a victim who survived. Most kidnappers and rapists do not just pick a random person and grab them. A group of convicted prisoners sat down for an interview and explained what they look for in potential victims. The first thing the attackers look for is the type of hairstyle the woman has. They look for ponytails, buns, or braids, anything they can easily grab onto. The second thing they look for is the kind of clothing that the woman is wearing. They like clothing that they can easily remove, and many carry scissors with them so they can cut the clothing. They look for women who aren't aware of their surroundings and who are already preoccupied. Women on their cell phone or looking through their purses. These women can be easily overpowered. The most common place that women are taken from are grocery store parking lots, office parking garages, and public restrooms. Their plan is to grab the woman and then quickly move her to their second location without getting caught. By putting up a fight, screaming and kicking, you will discourage your attacker. They don't have a lot of time, and by making a scene, you are wasting it. I'm not saying you need to always carry an umbrella with you, but men normally don't pick women with objects that they can use to defend themselves. Okay, so let's say you find yourself in a vulnerable situation. You're alone. Don't give up though, you still have a chance of getting away. If someone is following you and you're alone, turn around and ask them a question. A simple question like, "What time is it?" This way you have seen their face, and if they do attack you, you will later be able to identify them. Your attacker is most likely going to be bigger than you, but that doesn't mean he's won. If he comes up and grabs you from behind, pinch the skin in between the elbow and the armpit or the inner thigh as hard as you can. After that, always go for the groin. In the movies, when this happens, the attacker normally gets mad and wants to hurt his victims even more, but the interviewees explained they don't want trouble. If your attacker puts his hands up to you, grab his pointer and middle finger and bend them back as far as possible with as much pressure as you can. Some victims aren't as lucky when it comes to getting away. Elizabeth Smart was just 14 years old when she was kidnapped from her home in the middle of the night in Salt Lake City, Utah. Elizabeth tells her story to the Salt Lake Tribune. On June 5, 2002, Brian David Mitchell broke into the Smarts' house by cutting a screen in their kitchen window. He went into Elizabeth's room and, holding a knife to her throat, ordered her to get out of bed and follow him. They were married that night. Elizabeth was kept tied between two trees so that she couldn't escape. She was forced to drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, and was raped on a daily basis, but she was determined to survive. Brian Mitchell, along with his wife Wanda and Elizabeth, traveled all over Utah and California, sleeping at camping grounds and tents. On March 12, 2003, after 9 months of being missing, the three were spotted in Sandy, Utah. Someone had recognized Brian Mitchell off of America's Most Wanted. Elizabeth was in a disguise, wearing a gray wig, sunglasses, and a veil. Wanda Barzee was sentenced to 15 years in prison. However, her husband was found mentally incompetent and not fit for trial several times. A nurse who had been observing Brian said that he was faking his symptoms because he didn't want to be prosecuted. Dr. Noel Gardner spent 1,600 hours with Brian and afterwards claimed that Mitchell was only putting on an act. The jury found Brian guilty on May 25, 2011, and he was sentenced to life in prison and is now at the United States Penitentiary in Tucson, Arizona. Here's a picture of what Elizabeth looks like today. And here's a picture of what Brian David Mitchell looked like. So what are the numbers and stats behind this horrible crime? According to KidsFightingChance.com, 800,000 kids under the age of 18 go missing each year. Of that, 69,000 are abducted. 82% of all kids that are abducted are taken by family members. 18% are taken from non-family members. 37% are taken from complete strangers. 40% are killed, most within 3 hours, and 4% are never found. You don't need to live your life in fear or always be scared that someone is going to jump out and grab you, but you do need to be aware that not everyone is good. This is a dangerous world, but you now have insight on what attackers look for, the defense mechanisms you can use to help get away, as well as hearing the story of a victim who survived, and given the stats. Just remember, if you ever find yourself alone and you feel uneasy, be aware of your surroundings, always be alert, and don't be afraid to make a scene if you are attacked.